what is going on with Samsung. For a while, they seemed like they were dominating the phone market. When people thought about quality Android phones, the only option that was in people's mind was Samsung. Reviewers everywhere made videos and reviews on almost every phone Samsung made. But nowadays, you barely hear anyone talking about Samsung. So why is no one talking about Samsung? The only phones that Samsung makes that people seem to be interested in are the high-end ones. And those are pretty good phones, but most people don't buy high-end phones. Most people buy budget phones because they can't afford an expensive phone, and there's where companies like Xiaomi, Huawei, Realme, etc. are coming into play. Like Xiaomi came from nowhere, already is a direct threat to Samsung, not just in phones but in everything. And there are a lot more people talking and making reviews about Xiaomi budget phones compared to Samsung. So what happened? The answer is simple: they stopped caring. Let me explain. They launched the A series phones, their budget lineup, which people liked. There were options in every price category, and to their credit, they tried to do some new stuff, but ultimately they decided to go back on the innovation and just keep their cheaper prices. But fast forward to a couple of years, they seem to be getting lazy. Don't get me wrong, they are good and cheap, but when you compare to the competition, more times than not you will be able to find something cheaper and better. It's like you were paying more for the brand, and that's good, but when it comes to budget consumers, you get the idea. They look at the specs, they look at reviews online, and they make a decision compared to, for example, an iPhone user. The iPhone user every couple of years will buy a new model of iPhone no matter what. Does it mean that Samsung is bad? No, actually there are some shady things that companies like Xiaomi do so they can have their prices like they are. I mean, Xiaomi is smart, it knows where to cut costs, like it has less stores, it sells mainly online, it doesn't spend as much on marketing, and that's all good, but that's not the shady part. Xiaomi has two main problems, at least two that are highly visible. First, it has a lot of bloatware, it has a lot of apps pre-installed, and a lot of them you will never use, so probably it gets a cut from pre-installed apps, and sometimes when you install anything on the Play Store, it will show you an ad. Even Apple makes profit after you buy an iPhone. It makes the profit through apps, and even if you don't use apps from Apple, they take a cut of the profits from other apps that you purchase in your iPhone. Samsung doesn't do that, which means that Xiaomi first takes advantage of you by having random apps installed in your phone, and even after you buy it, it makes revenue from the AdSense, which to me is shady as fuck. Samsung doesn't do that. Once the phone is sold, it's yours, it's clean. It might have some Samsung apps pre-installed, but it is a Samsung phone. They are official apps, it's not like Xiaomi. Now the problem with it is that people don't know. People won't recognize the shady practice. If you are a budget consumer, you will go online, you will look at tech specs, you will watch a couple of versus videos, and more times than not they will not mention this problem. So this is one of the ways that Xiaomi can afford to make their phones cheaper and why Samsung is falling behind. Samsung has its own set of rules and doesn't do things like Xiaomi, and I for one can appreciate it. But while researching for this video, I came to the conclusion that there's still another thing that we need to worry about Samsung: their vision. I mean, as you know, Samsung makes a lot of stuff, from phones to laptops to TVs to pretty much everything. Any home appliance you can think of, Samsung probably makes, so their attention is divided. But it makes way more money from phones than it does from home appliances. Anyway, where I am trying to get is the chips. Samsung makes way more money from selling chips than it does from selling phones. And when you consider that the chip industry is extremely fierce and competitive, you know that they can't focus as much on phones. They pretty much have their hands in every single industry, and when push comes to shove, they will focus on their chip industry. And you can see that in the way they invest. So I said that Samsung is getting lazy. I didn't mean that they became lazy as a company, they just became lazy in the phone department, because there is more competition now and they have things that make them more money than phones. And that is good to have more than one basket, but when you have as many as Samsung, it makes it easier to lose sight of what is important. I mean, they are trying to do something with their flip and fold phones, but except that they haven't done anything exciting with phones. And that's not to say that Apple is exciting, they are even worse than Samsung. But the innovator, Samsung tried to do the flipping camera, they were the first to try the edge screen, and the folding phones came out in 2019. And okay, most of them failed or weren't popular, but there are things that stuck here and there, like the flipping camera didn't work, but the flip phone has a small display on the back to make selfies with the main camera, which was the objective of the flip camera. What I mean to say is that Samsung is becoming like Apple. They are comfortable, they are caring less and less about their phones, because even though their budget lineup has a lot of competitors, they are comfortable in the high-end lineup because they are doing pretty well. But like I said, people before were willing to spend more on high-end phones because the improvements from one generation to the next were major, and it seemed like every new phone that Samsung or iPhone made was this next big thing that you couldn't live without, because every phone was able to do something that the other phone couldn't, and the things that they could do weren't just gimmicks, they just evolved that fast. I mean, you could tell which phone was better just by comparing the photos that those phones made, and I am not even going to talk about the phone itself. Like, Samsung changed how their phones looked almost every year, and even iPhone experimented more. Not as much as Samsung, but they did experiment. Nowadays, when it comes to performance, the new generation is still faster than the previous generation. Even though it is faster, you can't even tell the performance difference in everyday use. And that's not to say that the phones are bad. The phone is so good that when the next phone that is better comes up, you can't even tell the difference. And let's be honest, when you actually get the phone, like if you had the Samsung S24 Ultra and the S25 Ultra side by side, would you be able to tell the difference if you didn't know what to look for? I think not. And even the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the 16 Pro Max, absolutely no difference. Honestly, someone could sell me the iPhone 15 Pro Max as an iPhone 16 Pro Max, and if I didn't go to the settings, I might use the phone for many years and never find out it wasn't the 16 Pro Max. And because of that, people just are not as interested and as thrilled to buy the next big phone. And when the budget phone has a big battery and a big display and seems to be able to do everything you might want to do on a phone, you can see how people would gravitate more towards the budget side. But what is Samsung doing currently? Because people don't talk as much about Samsung, and everyone is saying that they are doing a lot of things wrong, and Xiaomi is doing everything right. But if we look at the companies, Samsung is worth more. A lot more than Xiaomi. So how come Samsung is worth so much? And chips play a big role in there, but they are doing a lot of other things right as well. They might not be selling as many smartphones themselves, but they are selling a lot of phone parts. They sell different kinds of chips to other phone manufacturers and even make their own Exynos chips. Plus, they even sell high-end displays to big companies like Apple. Most Apple phones have a display made by Samsung. Just think about that when you see an iPhone. And to be honest, when it comes to phones, Samsung makes the best displays, so I don't blame Apple. So what does the future await for Samsung? And the answer is simple. They might be moving a bit away from making phones themselves, and they are focusing more on making phone parts. Because first, like I said, they are the best display manufacturer. And they are doing a lot of improvements in Exynos chips. So they might become a real competitor, and companies might start moving away from Snapdragon chips. When it comes to high-end phones, sometimes it feels like Qualcomm with their Snapdragon chips has a monopoly, but Samsung might change that. Basically, they are making and investing in the most expensive phone parts. And if they make it, they will be worth a lot more than they are currently, and even Xiaomi will be worth a lot more because they will be selling more phones, and they might even start buying more phone parts from Samsung. They already buy some phone parts from Samsung, but you never know. Samsung might grow in a whole different direction. Now, I am curious to know, what do you guys think? Will Samsung take the approach I said? Will they focus more on just chips, or do you think that they will try and invest more on their phones? Or maybe they will go all in the home appliances. You never know. Comment what do you think in the comments down below. Like, sub, and see you next time.